Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa salatu wa salamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen. Muhammadu Rasoolullāhi sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Tasliman kathiran kathira. Amma ba'du. My brothers and sisters, we did a seminar on marriage, I think 2 weeks ago or something like that, in the big mosque in ISWM in Springfield. And some of you attended that. So I thought to round that off, then it's a good idea to also talk about some good role models. And of course, the best role model is the Prophet ﷺ himself. And so I thought, let me do this. And this one we said we do it here. So then we combine the two, so it becomes a full, the material is for both people. Rasoolullahﷺ in this famous hadith, he told people, he said, be good to your women, be good to your wives, and I am the best to my wives. So this is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. And this is what he told his companions to do. Now, so how was he with his wives? Now he's saying, I am the best to my wives. I mean, is this as Muslims, of course, we believe what he said, but is it just a claim, or was he really good to his wives? And if he was good to his wives, then how in what way was he good? What do we have to say? So I thought that from my study of the Seerah, I thought let me share with you some stories, some documented historical evidence about the Prophet ﷺ's relationship with his wives. I want to begin with his relationship with his first wife and his only wife for 25 years. And that was Khadija radiallahu anha, Khadija bint Khuwaylid radiallahu anha. As we know, she was 40, he was 25 when they got married. And then he remained married to her for the next 25 years until she died, until she passed away. And only then did he marry Sauda radiallahu anha, and after that, later on, he married Aisha radiallahu anha, and so on. This relationship with Sayyidah Khadija al-Kubra radiallahu anha was it was an amazing relationship. If you think about this, he married somebody who was 15 years older than him. Right? Very unusual. I mean, unusual today, but even in those days, in the time of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, people were not that sensitive about age, but even there it was not a normal thing that you marry. First of all, you marry a woman who's older than you, and that also 15 years older than you. Now this is from the hikmah and from the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him a wife who was not just a wife, she was almost like she was his closest friend, apart from anything else. She was his closest best friend. She was also a great means of support for him. She was, I don't use the term mentor because nobody can be the mentor of the Prophet, alayhi salam, but think about it in that context. I mean, she was not his mentor, but she was somebody like some of the things that a mentor would do. For example, if you have any issue, if you have a question, you would go to the mentor and you would say, this is what I'm feeling, what do you think? Now that was the relationship with Rasulullah ﷺ with Khadija al-Kubra radiallahu anha. Now the most famous of the incidents is where he first received revelation. Right? First time he received revelation. Now it's a beautiful story, as we know. He used to go and meditate, and he used to go and pray, and he would fast in this cave of Hira, which was high up on the mountain. He would go, and sometimes he would spend 2 weeks, sometimes he would spend 3 weeks in the cave, and he wouldn't come back down. He would take dry rations. He would, eat that, whatever it was that he was carrying. Usually it would be dried dates, powdered, so you just put some water in it and you eat it. So that's the kind of hardship that he voluntarily underwent. He would spend that time in silence. He would spend that time in meditation, in dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in worship. And during one of those periods, he received wahi. He received the first revelation. He saw Jibreel alayhi salam. He saw the angel Gabriel, Jibreel alayhi salam, he first saw him on the horizon, and he described it himself. He said, I saw this sight of this person sitting on this huge throne, and he said his wings stretched from the east to the west, across the whole horizon from this end to this end. He could only see Jibreel alayhi salam. Now, that he was very frightened, obviously, to see this, because, it's right. Imagine if we see something like this. I mean, I think I'll probably just drop dead or something. Out of my heart would stop. I mean, this amazing sight. Rasulullah, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supports, so that didn't happen to him, but he was very frightened. And then the actual revelation where Jibreel came. And not only did he meet him face to face, there was physical contact, because he said that Jibreel alayhi salam hugged him. He said, Iqra. He said, read. Bismi Rabbika alladhi khalaq, in the name of your Lord and of your Rabb who created everything. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, I cannot read, because he was unlettered, he couldn't read. So Jibreel alayhi salam hugged him, and he said, when he hugged him, he held him so tight, he said, I couldn't breathe, I thought I would die. And then he released him, and again he said, Iqra. And he said, I cannot. Then he hugged him again, a second time and a third time. Now, when all of this happened, Rasulullah came down from the mountain, and he didn't come down on the wings of angels. He came down like a normal human being. He came running from there. He had rigor. He was shivering. Maybe his temperature was high. Obviously, his blood pressure would have been through the roof. His pulse was be racing. All of these signs of very stressful experience. He came and he said to his wife Khadija al-Kubra radiallahu anha, he said, Zammiluni. He said, cover me up. And he lay down and she covered him up with blankets. He was shivering, like you have a high fever and you had the rigor, cold, right? And she covered him up. Then she said, what happened? So he explained to her, he said, this is my experience. This is what happened. And he said, I am afraid, maybe did I see a jinn or something? I am afraid that Allah will destroy me, that I will die, and something will happen to me. I am fearful of this. Now, what was her response? This is the point I'm saying, that this is the kind of friendship that there was between the two of them. She said, Allah will not destroy you. Allah will not allow you to perish, because you are a good man. Yeah? She says to him, you are somebody who is good to your neighbors. You are hospitable to those people who are your guests. She said, you take your profit from your business and you spend it to alleviate other people's difficulties. Right? She said that you suffer the trials of people. People trouble you, people bother you. She said, you don't retaliate, you don't, if somebody is being nasty to you, you are not nasty to them in return. You are nice to them, you suffer their difficulties. So Allah will not allow you to be harmed. Now, this is the way she comforted him, right? Now, what does this tell you about the kind of relationship that they must have had, this beautiful relationship, where she respected him as an individual. Loving somebody is different from respecting somebody. I mean, you can love somebody. For example, people have, parents have children who are big problem, but the mother still loves the child, the father still loves the child, even though the child is problematic. So also with spouses and so on. So alhamdulillah, it's good to love, but the point is that love doesn't necessarily mean always that you also respect the individual as an individual. In this case, she loved him and she respected him as an individual. And imagine the kind of thing that she said to him. Right? And this was the relationship with Khadija radiallahu anha. One day, Rasulullah was sitting in his house in Mecca when Jibreel alayhi salam came to him. And Jibreel said, Ya Rasulullah, he said, O Prophet of Allah, your wife is about to come here with some food for you. When she comes, please tell her that I am saying salam to her. Right? and that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent me here to give his salam to your wife. As this statement, as Jibreel salam said this, Khadija radiallahu anha walked in. Rasoolullahﷺ said, Khadija, Jibreel is here with me, and he is saying salam to you, and he is saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent him here today to give salam to you. Allah's salam to you. Khadija radiallahu anha started crying. She started weeping. She said, Ya Allah. He said, Ya Rasulullah, Allah sent salams to me. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, yes. Yeah, this is the reward of supporting the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in his work of Islam. We look at another wife of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Juwairiya radiallahu anha. One of the most beautiful stories about her. She was known to be a Zahida. She was very, very pious, and she used to spend a lot of time in worship. So she was, one day she prayed Salatul Fajr with Rasulullah, and then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam left, and he went, whatever he had to do, he did all that. He came back at the time of Zuhr. Now this is in Medina. So from Fajr, because in the Middle East, in that place, Fajr is very early in the morning, right? And Zuhr is quite late. So maybe 6 hours later or something, right? He came back for Dhuhr, and he saw her sitting in the same place where he left her in the morning. The same place, same way, she was sitting there. So he came and he saw her. He said to her, you didn't move from here. You were here the whole day from the morning till now in the same place. She said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. I was making zikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I was doing zikr. He said, you were sitting here doing zikr for all these hours? She said, yes. He said to her, shall I show you and shall I teach you something which if you simply say it 4 times, Allah will give you the same reward that He gave you for making zikr for 6 hours. So she said, please, teach me. So, do you want to learn?
Yes.
Very simple. It's a very simple, very beautiful zikr and dua of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I will teach you inshallah, then I will ask you to repeat after me inshallah. And may Allah give us the same reward that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam promised to his wife, inshallah. Then I will also tell you the translation, the meaning of that, so we know what we are saying. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, say this 4 times. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi adada khalqihi wa rida nafsihi wa zinata arshihi wa midada kalimatih. 5 things. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi. All glory, all praise, all thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How much? Adada khalqi. Equal to the number of things that He created. How much praise and how much thanks? Equal to the number of things that He created. All that we know and all that we don't know. Even all that we know, every wave of the ocean, every gust of breeze, every radio wave, every microwave, every grain of sand, every blade of grass, every snowflake that falls to the earth, every drop of rain, every flash of lightning, every peal of thunder. And I haven't even come to the animals and the birds and the insects. Adada khalqi. Every single thing. Warida nafsi. How much? Until you are pleased. Whatever it takes to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Until, oh Allah, you are pleased. Rida nafsi. Wazinata arshi. And according to and equal to the weight and magnificence of the arsh of Allah, of the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمِدَادَ kalimati, and equal to the amount of ink that it takes to write the praises of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now about this last one, we know the ayat of the Quran in two places. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, if all the oceans turn to ink, and if the trees turn to pens, then you will finish writing and all the ink will be exhausted. And if you refill all of that, still you will be writing and it still will not be done. Now, this dhikr, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is saying, whatever is the amount of ink it takes, whether it's 10 times the ocean, whether it's 10 million times the ocean. Midad kalimat. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. So repeat after me, inshallah. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. Adada khalqihi. Wa rida nafsihi. Wa zinata arshihi. Wa midada kalimati. So let's say this 4 times. Because this is what Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, told Juwayriya radiallahu anha, our mother, to say, Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. Now see the relationship here. They are husband and wife, but it's also a teacher-student relationship. He's teaching her and he is concerned, and not only is he teaching her, he's saying, I'll teach you something which is in the best way. Sometimes I hesitate to use these terms, but just this is only for us to understand. It's like a shortcut. You spend 6 hours doing something. I'm going to teach you a shortcut to that, which will get you this whole thing in saying this 4 times, it takes how long? Maybe 2 minutes, right? So 3 minutes, maybe wallah. So he said, I'll teach you a shortcut which will get you this whole thing in 2 or 3 minutes. What you spend 6 hours doing, I'll teach you a way to get that in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, right? So this is a beautiful relationship of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Third one is Salama radiallahu anha. Now Salama radiallahu anha, again a beautiful story. She and her husband, Abu Salama, they first migrated from Makkah to Abyssinia. They were among the batch that went to Abyssinia. Abu Salama was a very dear friend of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sent them, so they went off to Abyssinia. Then from Abyssinia they came to Medina. So they actually made hijrah twice, from Makkah to Abyssinia and then from Abyssinia to Medina to be with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now Abu Salama radiallahu anhu then got injured in a battle, and that wound went bad, and eventually he died, he passed away. Now Salama and Abu Salama were very much in love with each other. They had a beautiful relationship. So when Abu Salama passed away, Salama was very dejected. She was very depressed. She was very sad that her husband passed away. Once her iddat period was over, people sent her proposals for marriage. So among the Sahaba, she refused. She said, there is nobody who is as good as my husband, who passed away. So why should I marry anyone who's not as good as the husband? Then Rasoolullahﷺ said to her, actually he went to, when Abu Salama was dying, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went there. He saw Abu Salama radiallahu anhu when he passed away and so on. He spoke to him. And later on, when Salama radiallahu anha was grieving, he said to her, sent a message and said that inshallah Allah will give you somebody better. Right? So Salama actually said to the person who brought this message, she said, who can be better than my husband who passed away? He said, he was the best man. There's nobody in the world who can be better than my husband. Anyway, that whole thing passed. So after her iddat period was over, Rasulullah sent a formal proposal of marriage to her. She accepted that and she said, Alhamdulillah, Allah has given me better. Because her husband was a very good man, but compared to the Prophet ﷺ, obviously the Prophet was better and he was a Prophet. So her husband was not a Prophet. Now she became among the one of the Ummahatul Mumineen, she became one of the mothers of the believers, and she became the wife of the Prophet. Now she again was a mature lady. She was, and very experienced. So she was the person who went with Rasulullah when they went for Umrah and they were stopped at Hudaybiyah. That whole incident of the Sulh of Hudaybiyah, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, Salama radiallahu anha was with Rasulullah. Now, as you know, this whole issue of what happened, Rasulullah went to Makkah. He saw in a dream that he was making Umrah. He announced it. People came. Totally about 1,400 people were with him. They went to make Umrah, but the Quraysh of Makkah, they stopped them. They didn't allow them to make Umrah. Long story, you know the story, so I won't repeat it here. But the long and short of it was that they were stopped at this place called Hudaybiyah, and the Quraysh of Makkah, they said, you cannot do Umrah, you have to go back. This was completely against the tradition of the Kaaba. It was completely against the tradition of the Arabs. No one ever stopped pilgrims from making pilgrimage, yet the Quraysh did that with Muhammad ﷺ and his people. But anyway, so they had to go back. There was a treaty that was written. The treaty was a completely one-sided treaty. It was a very humiliating treaty for the Muslims. But the Prophet ﷺ accepted all of those conditions. Now, the treaty was signed, and then Rasulullah ﷺ ordered the Sahaba, he ordered his companions. He said, we are going back, so shave your heads and slaughter the sacrificial animals which you brought to complete the cycle of the Umrah, which they could not do. Right? But for the first time, nobody moved. They were sitting with him. When he gave this order, they did not move. They didn't refuse to do it. They did not say, no, we will not do it. But they also did not immediately obey, which was their normal way. In the normal course of things, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam never even, most of the time, he didn't even need to say something. They anticipated what he wanted and they did it even before they were ordered. Now, for people like that, when they are given a direct instruction and they don't do it, it was very hard on the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, see the mercy of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself, because what he did was, he didn't repeat his order. Because if, for example, if he had repeated the order and if the Sahaba had still not obeyed, it would become a very, very serious matter. Because if somebody directly receives an order from the Prophet and does not do it or refuses to carry it out, then this person is out of Islam itself. So obviously, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam didn't want to put his people into that situation. So he did not repeat the order. But what did he do? It was so hard on him, he couldn't sit there. He got up and he went into his tent. In the tent, who was there? Salama radiallahu anha, his wife and our mother. She was in the tent. She saw him and immediately she knew that something is wrong by looking at his blessed face, the color of his face and so on. She knew something has gone wrong. She said, Ya Rasulullah, what happened? What happened? He said, my people are destroying themselves. He said, my ummah is destroying itself. He said, Ya Rasulullah, what happened? I mean, why do you say this? They're destroying themselves, why? I mean, what do you mean? How are they destroying themselves? He said, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, I ordered them to shave their heads and slaughter the animals and they have not obeyed. Right? Now think about that. How many of the ahadith, how many of the orders of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam do we obey and how many of them we choose not to obey? Think about that. It's a very serious issue. But in this case, She said this. He said this. So what does she say? She says, Ya Rasulullah, my suggestion to you is you please go out and you shave your head and you slaughter your animals. Don't tell them anything. You go and do it, and inshallah they will follow you. Now think about this. Who is advising whom? Who is the Prophet here? Salama or Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam? Now see his reaction. Did he turn around to her and say, excuse me? Who's getting wahi? You or me? Who's the Prophet? You or me? You advising me? How would you advise me? Did he say, no? He did not say any of this. He took the advice. He took the advice. And he followed what she told him to do. Now what kind of relationship do you think that is? In a stress situation, he comes inside, his wife gives him advice. Even though he is the Prophet, she is not the Prophet, he is the one who gets revelation from God, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, she does not get revelation. Yet when she advises him, he listens to the advice, he takes that advice. He went out, he called Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib radiallahu anhu, he said, shave my head. He said, bring the animals. And the Sahaba, all of them followed suit. Right? What kind of a relationship is that? A relationship of equality, a relationship of friendship, a relationship of mutual respect. No? We come to the last of the stories. There are several of them, and that is with relation to Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha. Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha was the daughter of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. One day, Amr ibn al-As radiallahu anhu asked Rasoolullahﷺ, you know, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had a way of talking to people. In his majlis, he would sit, and if he spoke to somebody, he would look directly at the person, he would face him, to the extent if somebody was behind him or to the side of him, if someone started speaking, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam would completely turn around and face that person. If he was walking and there was someone who spoke to him from the side, he didn't just talk to him over the shoulder. He would stop, he would turn around, he would face the person, and he would speak directly to the person. Complete attention, right, to the individual. Now, this was such a thing with him that the Sahaba, they were all convinced that the Prophet ﷺ loves me the most. Because see how he talks to me. Yeah? I mean, each one didn't say, well, you know, he also talks to everybody else like that. But no, he talks to me. He loves me the most. So Amr ibn al-As, I'm talking about Aisha radiallahu anha. Amr ibn al-As decided one day to ask him. But he didn't want to ask him, do you love me the most? So he said, Ya Rasulullah, who do you love the most? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Aisha. So he thought to himself, well, you know, that's a woman's name. He said, no, Ya Rasulullah, I don't mean Aisha. I mean, among the men, who do you love the most? He said, the father of Aisha. Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu anhu. Right? So Amr ibn al-As said, I didn't have the courage to ask a third question. I didn't want to ask a third time. So this Aisha radiallahu anha was the most beloved of the wives of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. She was a scholar of Islam. She was a woman with an incredible mind. She had, you know, there are some people who have this orientation towards learning and towards deductive reasoning and all of this of strategic planning. Some people are, Allah has gifted her. She was like this. Allah had gifted her, and she was an amazing scholar. They say that many times, you know, the fuqaha, they say that 25% of this deen came to us through Aisha radiallahu anha. There is no book of fiqh that does not contain fatwa and opinions of Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha. All the imams have quoted from Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu anha because she was an amazing scholar. Now, this lady, she was also the youngest of the wives of Rasul. So one day in Masjid Nabawi was the center of the life of the people, of the Muslims. So anything that happened in the masjid. So one day there was an Ethiopian delegation of Ethiopian warriors who came to meet Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So after they met him, they said, "We would like to, honor you, all right, and by demonstrating, and we have a way in which we use our spears and so on." They do a ceremonial kind of, for want of a better word, dance. It was not a dance as in dancing, social dancing or something. It's a, I don't know. Have you seen how the New Zealanders do the haka? Yeah, you must see. Go on YouTube. The New Zealanders, they have a way. If they want to honor somebody, they do what is called a haka. It's quite an amazing thing to see what they do, right? So the Ethiopians had their own way of. So now they were these Ethiopian warriors, big men with spears and so on, and they were doing the demonstration and the dancing with the spears. Now Aisha Siddiqa radhiyallahu anha wanted to see that. But she didn't want to go out in the middle and see. So Rasulullah was standing. She made him stand at the door of his house, and she stood behind him and looked over his shoulder. Now Rasulullah, for him, how much of interest or how much of time do you think he would have wanted to watch that? Because he was himself a warrior. He had seen all these things. But he stood there in that door until Aisha radiallahu anha was satisfied. His wife is watching over his shoulder, so he's standing there as the cover for her, and he stood there and he let this whole thing finish. She was a little short. So when she wanted to mount an animal, it was a camel or something in the Howdah, she had difficulty because she was too short. You know what the Prophet ﷺ used to do? He would kneel down on one leg and he would have her step on his thigh to mount the animal. He could have told them, put a step there or do something, or no. He would do it himself. He would kneel down and she would step on his thigh, and then she would get onto the animal. Rasulullah ﷺ sometimes used to race with her. They would have races. So Aisha Siddiqa radhiyallahu anha, initially she would beat him in the race. She would run faster. Later on, she put on a bit of weight. So when they raced, he beat her in the race. So he said to her, "You're getting fat." And she had a big laugh. Huh? Imagine, can you, how many people have you? Many of you are married here. How many of you race with your wives? You should know. No, seriously, I'm saying, the idea of these stories is for us to have such relationships with our spouses, no? One day, he decided to, she said to him, he used to help her around the house. He would wash dishes, he would clean, he would help her to cook. He used to do all this. So one day she said to him, "Ya Rasulullah, let's see if you can make bread as fast as I can make bread." So he said, "Okay." So they set up 2 stoves, and she's making bread and he's making bread. So she made one, and she made a second one, and she made a third one, and she made a fourth one, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is sitting with only one. And that one doesn't cook. So she started laughing. She said, "Ya Rasulullah, what is this? I made 4 and you didn't even make one." She said, "Aisha, I have a problem." She said, "What problem?" She said, "The thing that the hand of Muhammad touches, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the fire won't burn. So my bread doesn't cook." She said, "That's my problem." She said, "The thing that the hand of Muhammad touches, the fire won't burn. And so my bread is not cooking. That's the reason. I know how to make bread, but this is the problem." Final story. It's one of the most beautiful stories. One day, Aisha radiallahu anha and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had an argument. Aisha radiallahu anha was also a very spirited woman. She was not a submissive, domesticated kind of person. She was a very spirited woman. She had strong opinions. She would ask questions. where other people didn't dare to ask. I mean, there were many senior people, including, for example, Abbas bin Abdul Muttalib radiallahu anhu, who was the uncle of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They wouldn't ask him questions, but Aisha always asked radiallahu anha. That's the reason why we say, Alhamdulillah, Allah gave him somebody like that who asked those questions which needed to be asked. So today we have that religion. If she didn't ask those questions, we wouldn't have so many answers. So Alhamdulillah, may Allah raise her darajat and may Allah give her great reward. Thanks to her, we have so much of our religion. The position of women in Islam is something which is so misunderstood. Anyway, that's a different subject. So now, Aisha radiallahu anha and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had an argument. So Aisha radiallahu anha got very angry. And she was in this mood when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu walked into the house. Her father, the greatest and closest friend of Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There was no one dearer to him among the men than Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu walked into the house. Right? So Rasoolullahﷺ said to Aisha, okay, let's ask your father, who is right, me or you? So she said, okay. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, tell him what the story is. What's the disagreement? Explain to him. Explain to your father. You tell him. You tell him what the problem is. He said, you tell him. Imagine this argument happening. Think about that. He said, no, you tell him. And then, imagine that she is heated up. So, she said, you tell him. And then she said, speak the truth. Now, she's saying, speak the truth to whom? To Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Now, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu couldn't take it. He lost it. So, he slapped her hard. His own daughter. He never did that in his whole life. But that day, for this statement, he got so angry, he slapped her hard. Rasulullah got absolutely livid with him. He said, leave my house now. To whom? To Abu Bakr. He said, get out. Leave my house right now. I mean, the whole situation completely changed. Abu Bakr Siddiq left. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then hugs Aisha Siddiqa and he says, we should never involve other people in our arguments. See what happens when we get other people involved. He didn't tell her, Aisha, you should not have said your father got angry because I am the prophet of Allah. You are telling me speak the truth. If I don't speak the truth, who speaks the truth? He didn't say any of this. He didn't say any of this. He hugged her and he said, we should never get others involved. See what happens when we get others involved. Who is the other? Her father. It's not a stranger. And she also said, Ya Rasulullah. I mean, everything cooled down. This is the kind of beautiful relationships that the Prophet ﷺ had with his wives. I mean, I don't want to take more time, so I have 4 of these very prominent ones I thought let me share with you. The purpose of this is to remind ourselves that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created this relationship of marriage between the husband and the wife, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put mercy in it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put respect in it, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put sukoon and tranquility in it. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah in Surah Rum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, He put وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, which means that among the signs of Allah, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, Allah said, among His signs is that He has created from amongst you your mates, so that you may find tranquility in them, peace and harmony with them. And Allah has put in this relationship mawadda wa rahmah. Allah put in it love and Allah put in it mercy. The love is the love that we have for each other, and mercy is the mercy that we expect from Allah, which is forgiveness. Forgiveness is mercy in action. Mercy in action is forgiveness. Because forgiveness, the need for it comes because a mistake has been made. But instead of retaliating, you forgive. That is mercy. Mercy is not good for good. Mercy is good for bad. And Allah said, in this there are signs and there is learning for people who reflect. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu to be pleased with you and never to be displeased. I ask Allah to enable us to learn from the beautiful life of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and to mold our own lives on this beautiful model that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent for us, which is the life of His Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to live and practice Islam. Right? Live and practice Islam. I want to end with the thought that came to me just now. Just today, a friend of mine sent me a audio clip and photographs from Dubai. This friend of mine is a Christian gentleman. He's a business manager in Dubai. He's an Indian guy called Xavier Alpurdaraj, and he lives in Dubai. Now Xavier went to India. He got dengue fever, and he came to Dubai, so he had to be hospitalized. So Xavier says, I was in hospital in Dubai, and I got up in the night to go to the bathroom or early morning, and he said when I went to the washroom, it was stinking and reeking with cigarette smoke. He said I realized that this cigarette smoke came from the next room through the air duct or something, and he said I am allergic to cigarette smoke. He said I used to smoke 35 years ago. I gave up, and now I don't like the smell, and it was a very unpleasant experience. I'm already not well, and I go to the toilet, and this is what happens. Anyway, he came out. He called the hospital administration, and he said to them, "Look, this is what has happened, and I'm very sorry. You should do something about this, and this is not acceptable." He said later in the day, somebody knocks on the door. A man comes in, young man, with a box, and the man says to him, "I am the person next door." He said, "I work for Dubai police. I'm a policeman." He said, "I am not well. I am in the room next door. I'm very sorry. I have been smoking, and I didn't realize that this smoke comes into your bathroom. And I sincerely apologize to you. Please forgive me for causing you pain. I had no intention. I didn't even know you are here. And this is a huge big box of chocolates." He said, "This is for you." Now Xavier is so impressed with this behavior, with this akhlaq, that somebody who is a stranger, and the whole dynamics of being Amarati and Hindi and whatnot in that place, none of that. The man comes, he apologizes to him, he brings a box of chocolates and he gives it to him. This is the meaning of applied Islam. I'm not talking about the fact that he was smoking. Obviously, that's not something that he should have been doing. Leave that aside. But I'm saying whatever he was doing, may Allah forgive him. But the behavior, when something goes wrong, how do you make amends? What do you do? How do you treat somebody? And the other person is not a Muslim. The other person is a Christian guy. It doesn't matter. Islam does not differentiate between Muslim and non-Muslim as far as relationships and akhlaq and manners and rights are concerned. In Islam, everybody is the same. They all have the same rights. Whether you are Muslim or not Muslim makes no difference. Everyone is entitled to justice. Everyone is entitled to compassion. Everyone is entitled to kindness. There is no differentiating between a Muslim and a non-Muslim in Islam. We know this. The issue is to practice that in our lives. And that is the purpose of all of these classes and so on the seerah of Rasoolullahﷺ. I ask Allah to accept this and to be pleased with you and never to be displeased. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik wa ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.